Tighebo here. We're back with more Five Nights with Harry by Harry LaFertz. We are on chapter 28. I believe in the last chapter we dealt with the attack on Mr. Weasley and Nagini, as well as a little creepy something at the end. Hopefully I pulled off the creepiness. But yeah, we're now on chapter 28. If you want to follow along, the chapter link will be in the description below as always. Now let's get started. Yawning as she walked towards the door due to knocking, Michelle sighed as she scratched her lower back. I'm coming. Hold your horses. She pointedly ignored the animatronics, except to shoot them a glare. You could answer the door, you know. Olive looked up with a blink from her coloring book that she was working hard at keeping within the lines in, and blinked. But, Auntie Michelle, Mommy told us not to answer the door if someone knocks. That caused her to stop and blink for a moment, as her tired mind worked away at that. Wait, Erica told you that? Really? When Olive nodded, Michelle blinked as she tried to process it before she grunted. Huh. Hearing that the knocking was still going on, she sighed and walked up to the door. 1 moment. A moment later, Michelle opened it and sighed. Hey, look, She was promptly glommed by a woman who greatly resembled her and wore red-rimmed glasses. Utterly missing the fact that the surprised Michelle was windmilling her arms, the woman tightened her hug. Oh, Michelle, I was so worried when your father said that you were working at Freddy's. But then Faith explained everything, and I'm so proud of you. Then the woman pulled away a bit and examined her from head to toe as she held the unamused Michelle in place. Let me look at you, honey. It seems like you're taking care of yourself. Poking her head out of the den, Olive blinked at the woman and pointed at her. Auntie Michelle, who is this? Just as Michelle was about to say something, the woman raised an eyebrow. And who do we have here? Oh, why did they call you Auntie? A moment later, Olive waved at her. Hi, I'm Olive Oddly Perks. Auntie Michelle is my auntie because Mommy says she's like a sister, and so is my auntie. With a blink, the small animatronic tilted her head to the side. Are you Auntie Michelle's big sister? Squealing, the woman rushed over to her and picked her up easily, which caused Olive to blink. Aren't you a little cutie? Hello, dear. I'm Michelle's mother, Rebecca, but everyone just calls me Doll. But you can call me Great Auntie Doll. Her eyes wide, Olive gasped before she started to wave her little arms in the air. Yay! I got a great auntie! Michelle, meanwhile, stared with a blank expression at her dad, who stared back with an identical expression on his face. So, you picked up Mom and didn't bother to tell me. That was why you rushed out of the house. With a shrug, as both Olive and Doll babbled in the background, Mike rolled his eyes. You know what your mother is like. She wanted this to be a surprise for you. Also, expect her to spoil the animatronics now that she knows that most of them are actually kids. A sigh escaped Michelle as she pinched her nose. Right. Looking over her shoulder, she noted that her mom was still swinging the giggling Olive around in the air. Michelle also spotted several other animatronics poke their heads into view to see what was going on. You're gonna get hurt. However, Doll only snorted at her before she looked back at Olive. Oh, come off it. This little sleep pie wouldn't hurt me, right? Getting a nod from her, Doll set her down before she walked up to Michelle with a grin that caused a shiver to go down the younger woman's back. So, what's this about a boyfriend that I heard from your father and Faith? Eyebrow twitching, Michelle turned towards her father and the spectre on his shoulder, both of them whom turned away from her and whistled innocently, and both of whom hid their smirks at how her teeth could be heard grinding. Really now? While her grin widened, Doll leaned in over her shoulder. So then, tell me all about this Harry fella and why you hid that you were dating for your dear old mother. As she felt like her face was on fire, Michelle suddenly grinned as she got an idea for revenge. We're not dating, Mom. But first, maybe you should talk to Dad about swearing in front of the animatronics and Faith about hitting on people inappropriately in front of them. They are children after all. Mike and Faith both froze and still turned to them with narrowed eyes. Oh, they did they? The expressions of both her dad and Faith's promise vengeance as they tried to fend off an angered doll. All Michelle could do was cackle internally. Oh, bring it on. Hearing a grunt that night while at her job, Michelle looked up from where she was taking a bite of Chico's pizza and raised an eyebrow at her father who had a sandwich on a plate. Seriously? You went and made a sandwich? Mike turned. Michelle could hear Faith hanging off his shoulder as he raised an eyebrow. What's wrong with a sandwich? All that did was cause Michelle to roll her eyes as she set down the slice of pizza and flicked through the cameras. Bit of a waste, what with Chica having gone through all the trouble of making us a pizza is all. Least you could do is to at least try it. Ripping a chunk out of his sandwich, Mike chewed for a moment and held up a finger. Once he swallowed, he gave his daughter a look. I don't trust that chicken. While she facepalmed, Michelle shook her head. Dad, get over yourself. Chica is not dangerous to you in any way whatsoever. Hell, she's more in danger from you, most likely, than you are from her. Getting another grunt, Michelle rolled her eyes. Besides, Mom tried some and she liked it. Sorting, Mike waved a hand around. You know how your mother can get. He then frowned a bit as he looked around. Speaking of, where is she anyway? For a moment, Michelle stared at her father and blinked. You don't know? His eyes narrowed. Mike gave his daughter a stern look. No what, exactly? Unseen by him, Faith had spotted something and was staring. A second later, Michelle pointed in the same direction with a raised eyebrow. Mom's over in Pirate Cove with Foxy, Eric, and the twins. They're all playing pirate. There was a silence from Mike until he turned towards Pirate Cove and blinked. Mainly because there on top of the ship was his wife, dressed up as a pirate as she used a plastic sword against Foxy. The other animatronics cheering her on. I think that's supposed to be on and not own. As she did so, Arr, Foxy, I, the dreaded pirate doll, shall defeat you, and then make you walk the plank, huh? Clashing his blade with hers, Foxy growled. You not be a man to defeat the likes of Captain Foxy, arr. It shall be you that walks the plank. A second later, he was sent sprawling as Dole shoved him back. Good thing that I not be a man, then I be a woman. From where she stood, Faith slowly nodded with a strange chuckle that caused Michelle to inch away. Oh, she's all a woman, all right, and what a woman at that. Giving her a look, Mike sighed before he held his face in his hands. Damn it, Dole, do you have to do this to me? After he gathered himself, he took another look at her. And that costume looks ridiculous on her. On his shoulder, Faith nodded. Yeah, I like the one she has for the bedroom much better. Michelle started to choke on her drink before she glared at the specter. Too much information there, Faith. I really don't want to know what my parents get up to. Beside her, Mike only nodded as he tried not to start cursing. Then Faith just shrugged. Everyone likes to spice things up in their own way, Michelle. Maybe one day you'll have something like the Dark Lord having captured the Heron type deal with Harry. She paused for a moment. Or maybe turn that around with you being a dark lady, him the dashing hero. Now slightly grave, Mike was about to tell Faith off as she continued. Besides, I haven't gotten into the whole cowboy bit yet. Whoops. Eyes wide, both Smiths there with her turned and shouted, Faith! In reply, she only cackled in amusement. Heavy breathing came from the figure on the bed in the orphanage dormitory. Then it hopped off and rushed over to one of the doors on either side and stopped. After a moment, it opened the door and produced a stick. Lumos. Much to the figure's terror, a shadowy creature at the end of the hall ducked out of sight. Slamming the door shut, the figure shook before it rushed back to the bed. Hearing something, it shone the stick behind it to reveal two demonic-looking teddy bears before they sucked back under the bed. Another sound forced it to look at the other door, and it looked out to see a form ducked behind the corner. No, 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 no. You won't get me. You won't. Do you realize who I am? Slowly the figure backed toward the bed, wild eyes looking every which way. They won't get me. They can't. The creak of a door caused it to rush to the closet to review closet. What? To the closet, me open what? To open it and opened it to reveal a demonic, robotic looking fox. Closing the doors for a moment, the figure reopened them to reveal the creature's gun. Suddenly, a breeze blew past, and shakingly the figure turned towards the window that was now open. Backing away from it, the figure stilled as it heard a childish giggle. Get away from me! He then jumped back, only to hit something. Utterly still, the figure jerkingly, as if against their will, tilted their head back. Pure horror could be seen on the figure's face at the sight of a fox similar to the last one, except for being a blood-stained golden color. Then it opened its mouth to reveal 2 rows of sharp metal teeth, and behind that was a running face that glared at him with dead eyes before it opened its mouth to reveal sharp teeth. Sharp teeth that buried themselves in the screaming red-eye figure's head as the fox let out an unholy screech. Gasping, Voldemort sat up in his bed shaking. He was so out of it that he had not noticed that the wounds on his forehead had opened up and began bleeding. What sort of dark magic is this? What is this accused magic, and how does Dumbledore know it? A childish giggle sounded through the room, and he stilled. Not so nice when others make you cry, huh? You made so many cry. I can't help but hate it when it's you. Seeing the shadowy form in front of him, Voldemort snapped and shot off a killing curse, only for a giggle to echo through the room when it hit. Why didn't you bother someone else? Be gone! The figure was soon joined by 2 others that towered over it before it shook its head as its green eyes became saddened. You are broken. Suddenly, the one on the left with 2 red eyes, but the hint of yellow, shook its head. But you can only be fixed for your own efforts. We cannot fix you. On the other side, the pitch-black figure glared at Voldemort with hate in its eyes. But you won't let yourself be fixed. Too afraid of what would happen. And so in the end, you'll meet the same fate as all broken things that cannot be fixed. Almost as one, all 3 figures spoke. Tossed onto the scrap heap and forgot him. With an enraged scream, Voldemort leapt from his bed and started flinging spells everywhere. I will never be destroyed and forgotten. I am immortal. All shall know me and fear me. However, just like he had not noticed the blood flowing from the scar in his head, Voldemort also had not noticed both that the figures had vanished and that one of his Death Eaters peeked in and then closed the door. After all, inviting his wrath would give one a ticket to see the Grim Reaper, Death Eater or not. Leaning back in his chair, Sirius took a look at the calendar and smiled. Already the 18th. Harry's here for Christmas, and I'm going to be able to enjoy New Year's as a free man. Life is good. A glance showed him a bottle of whiskey that he slowly reached towards, only to pause as the scream ripped through the house. Sirius then leapt from his chair as he recognized the scream. Hermione? Harry! It took him only a few moments to find himself in Harry's room to see his goddamn son seeming to have some kind of fit. What's happening? A sigh behind him caused him to turn to see a serious expression on Dumbledore's face. I was rather afraid that this might happen. Waving his wand, several ropes bound Harry to the bed, and he walked over. Unless I'm wrong, Tom is attempting to use his connection to mentally attack Harry, possibly even possess him. However, a growl caught all their attention. Like fucking hell he is. Much to the surprise of those who had not met her, Aya appeared with an enraged expression on her face as she stalked towards the bed. We have had enough of this bastard. Will take care of him. Oh yeah, it's this again. I think. Did I do the we part? Or I'll go for the Okay. Anyway, Dumbledore frowned and was about to ask when he heard whispers and looked up, as did the Weasleys. As did the, as did the Weasleys, Hermione, Mad-Eye, Tonks, and Kingsley. Other than Sirius and Remus, those were the only members of the Order there, and they froze at the sight of the black mist on the ceiling. Then it opened a multitude of bloodshot eyes and mouth before it glared down towards Harry and growled. Backing against the wall, Tonks bloomed. What in the name of Merlin is that thing? With his throat dry, Sirius croaked a bit. I've never seen it before, but from the descriptions Harry gave me, that would be the Black Mass. At the looks, he continued, they're the marked spirits of all the night guards who died at Freddy's. According to Harry, they're pretty much insane and protective of him. Nodding, Dumbledore barely noticed Veronica appeared alongside Rose, and the two stiffened before they looked around the room. I see. And how are you going to take care of Tom? Anne turned and glared. How else? We're going to evict his ass from the premise. Once she said that, she walked over and seemed to dive into Harry, followed by the Black Mass also diving in. If anything, that caused Harry to struggle even more, and he opened both eyes. One was red with a slit and full of fear, while the other was pitch black, except for a white pupil. The pitch black eyes seemed full of righteous rage. Get the bloody fucking hell out of my body, Voldemort. Behind the group, Veronica looked around breathless. Rose, do you feel that? Her eyes narrowed. Rose nodded. She fixed her gaze on a spot of the floor. Yeah, if that presence that we're sensing with Harry is Voldemort, then he's somewhere else in this place as well. It's weak, but it's almost like it's resonating with what's happening with Harry. That's the best that I can describe it. That caught Albus' attention, and he whipped around to stare at the two. You could sense his presence somewhere else in the building? At their nods, he grimaced. Please, I hate to ask you to leave, but find it, and quickly. Its presence here is possibly part of the reason why Voldemort's connection to young Harry is strong enough for him to attack. Growling, Rose's eyes went black with a white pupil. You don't even need to ask. Veronica, teleport right there, and I'll be there as soon as I can. With a nod, Veronica vanished, and Rose took off. A few seconds later, they could hear creatures' screeches and bangs as if there was a fight somewhere elsewhere in the house. But what caught everyone's attention was that Harry's struggles became even more violent. Despite the bindings on his body, it still thrashed back and forth. With narrow eyes, Dumbledore noticed small wisps of smoke coming from Harry's body. Darkest of magic and the lightest. Please, Harry, make it through this. I don't want to do what I may have to if Tom manages to win. As always, when she entered Harry's body, Aya found herself surrounded by warmth as motes of light sparkled along her form. If anyone ever asked, she would liken it to sinking into a warm bath. Sinking ever deeper, she penetrated past that first layer with a trail of the energy that composed of it, following her like a tether. Parvati Alia noticed the larger form of the Black Mass behind her, a whale following a dolphin, but with one major difference. This whale and dolphin duo had rather large teeth, and were more vengeful than Moby Dick. Slowly, the darkness around them lightened as she could hear Harry's shouts. If anything, that caused Air and the Black Mass to speed up their descent, and soon the darkness lightened to reveal a familiar security office. Grabbing the tablet, Aya quickly flipped through the cameras and narrowed her eyes as she noted how the curtains to Pirate Coves were open with nothing there. Finally, she opened the main camera in the party room to show the place wrecked with Harry fighting Voldemort. Got you now, you son of a bitch. Meanwhile, Harry struggled as threads of darkness that descended from Voldemort wrapped around him. The Dark Lord meanwhile grinned as he stepped forward. Well, well, Potter, I must admit that you put up a greater fight than what I expected, and with a developed mindscape as well. It truly is a shame that you never took me up on my offer. He paused for a moment as both him and Harry heard running footsteps, and he turned to see Aya, who appeared as a blazing white spectre due to the energies surrounding her, leap into the air with one foot towards him. Boot to the head, nah. Said boot slammed into his head at high speeds and sent him flying into the stage as Aya landed in a crouch. Thankfully, the blow also freed Harry, who now stood up and looked at Aya with a grunt. What took you so long? The spectre only shrugged. Just taking a walk in the woods. Harry could only raise an eyebrow at her. You were taking a walk in the woods? Nodding, Aya took note of that Voldemort was slowly rising to his feet with rage in his eyes. A very enthusiastic walk in the woods, as it turned out. But I'll tell you more later once we deal with the snake-faced bastard. Judge shook her head as she looked him over. Seems that not only did you fall out of the ugly tree, but you hit every branch on the way down. A snarl split Voldemort's face as he glared at Aya. So it's the creature who's been keeping me out. He narrowed his eyes a bit as he fingered his wand. No matter. Once I've dealt with you, Potter will be easy. The Dumbledore will kill Potter in order to stop me. The raised finger, Aya chortled. Anyone tell you that you talk too much? Oh well, odds are in our favor. Sneering, Voldemort shot off a spell that both defenders dodged. Perhaps in many circumstances it would be Potter, but not in this case. That caused Aya to blink as she rolled to her feet and looked at Voldemort in confusion. What did you just call me? Flinging another spell at her before shielding himself against one of Harry's spells, Voldemort snorted. It's obvious that you are somehow that accursed mudblood, or perhaps an impression she had left behind to guard her son. No matter, though. I'll just kill you a second time. Much to his anger, Aya only laughed at him as she threw a chair that got blasted apart. Boy, aren't you in for a shock? Besides, it's not just me and Harry you need to worry about. Just as Voldemort was about to demand she explain herself, something massive impacted the side of his head, and the whole world seemed to tilt before he went skidding across the floor. Getting to his feet, Voldemort was about to attack when the words died in his mouth. Close to where he had been was a skeleton composed of shadow and encircled with motes of light the size of a giant, except its eye sockets were filled with dozens of eyes, and there were skeletal arms composed of shadow that kept reaching out from between the ribs. Completing the sight were the rows upon rows of teeth that showed every time the thing opened its mouth and grinned at him. A grin that Voldemort knew was anything but friendly. This was shown for a few moments later as it charged, throwing tables and chairs aside as an unholy shriek ripped its way out the being's throat. When the spells he was throwing didn't do anything, Voldemort was about to just lay waste to Harry's mind, but he didn't get a chance as the said wizard, having been forgotten, fired out a spell that tripped Voldemort for just enough time that Aya jumped on him. Moments later, her clawed hands circled around his neck. Aya's sharp, burning talons dug deep in an ever-twisting grip as the two combatants seemed to rise upwards. If you're not coming out peacefully, then I'm just going to have to drag you out. Now fearing for his life, Voldemort barely saw the massive monstrosity in Harry's mind, grabbed the small cord that extended from his mental representation and off into the distance. Said cord connected what was in Harry's mind to his own, and so he focused his power on an attempt to break free. With a final burst of magic, he pulled himself out of Harry's mind, leaving behind what amounted to a shade of himself. What was left behind was much like an oil-filled balloon, and Anne tightened her grip on it until it finally burst, splashing fetid goo everywhere. Harry's mental representation eyes widened as he saw a shadow shoot away from the now-destroyed shade and head up for the ceiling. What in the bloody hell was that? Looking up, Anne blinked. She barely noted that the black mass was following the smoke up towards where she knew the real world waited. Now that, Harry, I don't know. Suddenly she blinked as the mote of light surged into new brightness, and the goo left from the destruction of Voldemort's shade hissed like water on a hot skillet as they seemed to evaporate. Then they were gone, and the whole metal construct brightened. Slowly, the run-down pizzeria repaired itself until it looked like it was newly opened. All the damage missing. Huh. Will you look at that now? Slumped against one of the tables and seemingly out of breath, Harry only nodded. Yeah. He found himself embraced by air a moment later as the spectre gave a sigh of relief. I'm just glad that we got here in time and that you're safe. For a few moments, everyone could hear the noises downstairs increase, along with what sounded like explosions. However, their attention was then grabbed by Harry's back arched against the ropes holding him down to the point where he started to bleed from his wrists. Then his scars seemed to burst. Black ichor streamed down his head as a black screaming mist was expelled from his forehead. Such mist didn't get far as the black mass shot out of Harry and grabbed it. Then, if ever anything, the screams from the mist increased as the ghostly thing was dragged through the wall by the black mass, even as the composite spirit tore at it. Moments later, an exhausted Alia also floated up from Harry before she sat in the air above him. There. Whatever that thing he was using to connect with Harry is gone. Rushing over, Hermione used her sleeve to wipe away some of the black substance from the unconscious Harry's head and blinked. His scar? It's lighter. Eyes wide, Dumbledore walked over and thus missed Veronica holding a struggling creature and Rose with a locket walk into the room. Several waves of his wand, first to vanish what was left of the ichor, and then to examine the scar more closely, and Dumbledore let out a smile. Yes, and so is his burden. A happy tear escaped from his eye as he nodded. And so is his burden. As scowled as she entered the black library through the wall, seeing the looks directed she not just delivered, but Rose and Veronica, her scowl only grew. That Pomfrey won't let me stay in the same room with Harry while she examines him. There was a look of sympathy on Sirius's face as he nodded. She is the best, though. Suddenly, his expression changed to a scowl as he looked at Crutcher. Then he glared at Dumbledore. Speaking of, what in the bloody hell happened back there, Albus? And you better give me straight answers. Leaning back in his chair, the headmaster seemed to be all his age of almost a century. I will, of course, give you those answers, though I suspect that you may have an inkling already. With a sigh, he folded his hands in front of his face as he stared at the locket on the table. Before I do, have you asked Cretcher where the locket came from? It is part of the explanation, I'm afraid. Eyes narrowed, Sirius shared a look with Remus and then grunted. No, I even know who gave him the order to reveal what he knows, but all he'll do is mutter that he's unable to and how that makes him happy. Much to Sirius's surprise, Dumbledore only nodded as he suspected as such. Perhaps then we might try a different method. At the slow nod, Albus turned towards the creature and smiled. Order him to tell me the story. If it's as I suspect. Unsure, Sirius turned towards a now nervous creature and frowned. Creature, I hereby order you as head of House Black to tell the story behind the locket to Dumbledore. For several moments, it seemed like the old household attempted to fight the order, only to scowl before he launched into his story. By the end of it, an emotional Sirius blinked back tears as he slumped back. Of all the times for my brother to finally show bravery. Merlin, after all these years of thinking he just got cold feet. Allowing Sirius several moments to gather himself, Albus finally sighed and stared at the locket. It is as I always feared. Sirius, after having calmed himself, ran a hand through his hair and shuddered. Merlin, Voldemort made Horcruxes. Multiple ones. Blinking, Remus tried to lighten the mood some. Is it Horcruxes or Horcrux? At the looks, he shrugged a bit and hung his head. Sorry about this. Meanwhile, Rose looked at the locket in confusion before she picked it up and held it in one pull. Okay, what in the hell is a Horcrux? And what does it have to do with what just happened to my nephew? While he stared at the locket as it spun this way and that in the air, Dumbledore grimaced. A Horcrux is among the darkest of magic for what it does. In many ways, it's similar to what has happened to you and the others in the Matins. That caused the three undead's attention. The creation of a Horcrux requires the act of cold-blooded murder to create terror in one's soul, after which the rest of the magic acts attends the soul in half, with half remaining with dark wizard or witch, and the other half being placed into an object. The half in the object will act as an anchor of sorts, keeping the rest of the soul from passing on unless destroyed. Several moments passed as the three undead considered this before Veronica slowly nodded. Like, how our souls being bought into our suits keeps us from moving on then. Nodding, Dumbledore had a slight look of disgust in his face. While I never received confirmation during the war with Grindelwald, some of his notes hinted at him having used the methods of creating Horcrux as a basis for the soul entrapment of his mechanical theory. At the looks, Dumbledore shook his head. I personally destroyed all his notes that I found, as did others. Magic such as that should not be known, and is better off forgotten. As she grunted, Aya looked at her hand. Obviously not that forgotten. I remember reading a saying somewhere where forbidden knowledge has a way of making itself known. To that, Albus gave a nod. Quite. Clearing his throat, Remus had a haunted look on his face as he brought them all back to the real issue. You said that the story of the locket was part of the explanation behind what just happened tonight. Are you telling us that Harry... Dumbledore closed his eyes in regret and nodded before Sirius practically exploded. You knew that one of those things were inside of Harry and did nothing? Did you not even care? A moment later, Sirius was pushed back into his seat as the bookshelf shook and rumbled due to the wild magic that came from a finally angry Dumbledore, showing why he was so feared by dark beings. Do not assume that I did not care for Harry in this case, Sirius. Ever since I have had my suspicions as to what happened to Harry that Halloween, I have attempted to find some way to remove it without him possibly diving. I have delved into magic that I would have never touched otherwise to try and come up with a method. As well, I have exhausted every single contact that I have had to try and find a way of saving him. Getting up in a swirl of his royal robes, Dumbledore stalked over to a wall and leaned against it. Every avenue, though, turned up empty except for one method which could work, one that I have often raged against fate and destiny for leaving it the only way I have found. Quietly, Rose spoke up in a whisper. And what method was that? Silence descended on them all before Dumbledore shook his head. I investigated methods through which Tom might return to physical forms many years ago. The method he used is the best we could hope for, as the blood he took from Harry forged a tether of sorts. If Harry was to allow Tom to use the killing curse upon him in an act of self-sacrifice, the act of Tom using the killing curse against a living Horcrux of his would be akin to unknowing reconciliation of the soul. This would strengthen Lily's protection, and along with the tether between the two, due to Harry's forcibly taken blood, it would give the greatest chance of survival for Harry. Turning from the wall, all of them could see a relieved expression on Dumbledore's face and a slight wetness around his eyes. However, I am thankful that it is no longer needed, as Aya here has solved the issue. The Horcrux has been removed from Harry, and so he is both alive and safe. All the lapsed into thoughtfulness as they allowed Dumbledore time to compose himself. Sitting back into his chair, the elderly wizard poured some tea for them all and passed the cups around except for Aya, who waved it off. When she sipped her tea, Veronica nodded. You're not the only one who's thankful. Though, if you had told us that Harry would need to possibly die to be free, I have my doubts that we could control ourselves in what we would do. If anything, that only brought a nod of acknowledgement from Dumbledore, and I would not blame you for any actions you took. Although, Sirius Locket shuddered. I still can't believe that he created more than one of those abominations. That locket, Harry, and if what he described as being true, that diary. Remus shook his head. Free is a powerful magical number. He trailed off as Dumbledore shook his head. Please tell me he only created free. With a frown, Dumbledore considered things, but he trusted each of them if only because those there would do anything for Harry. You're quite correct that he was after a powerful magical number, but Having talked with Arthur after the attack, I now said that Nagini was also one, and then the Master's soul would also be one. Thus, if that was true, then we would be looking at 4, as I suspect that Tom would not know he made Harry into one. 4 is not a powerful magical number. The next powerful magical number is both most likely and most powerful we could reach. A swear ripped out of Remus's mouth as Sirius paled and shook. 7. That bloody mad boss created 7 of those things. Having taken a sip of the tea, the headmaster nodded. That is what I believe was creating 6 Horcruxes. Tom's soul was unstable enough to splinter, as showed by what happened with Harry. 7, or 8, as the case may be, is very likely the limit for him. As his wrinkled hand stroked the cup, Dumbledore stared into his depths. Ever since that night when he was first defeated, I have been doing research into Tom's past in order to find out what they could be. Alas, it has left me with only hints. However, recent events have given me an opportunity to find them, and even those hints could help greatly. Confused, Ale looked up. How? Smiling, Dumbledore's eyes twinkled a bit. Rose and Veronica were able to sense the Horcrux hidden in Grimmauld, simply because, according to them, it resonated with the fragment in Harry. If I could test something? Both animatronics shared a look before Rose nodded. Go ahead. If it's what I think you're thinking, then it might work. As he nodded, Dumbledore summoned Fawkes and used his fire travel to go back to Hogwarts. Several minutes later, he returned with an old, beaten-up book that had a hole seemingly burned through it. Placing it on the table, he looked up at Rose and Veronica, who blinked. Well? Do you sense anything? The two closed their eyes for a moment before they opened them and nodded. Veronica speaking up. It's a lot weaker than with Harry, but it seems to be causing the same resonance. Interested, she narrowed her eyes. It's almost like how us animatronics can sense that others possess. Different. Like a high-pitched hum is the best I can describe it as. Clapping his hands, Dumbledore grinned as the twinkle in his eyes increased. Excellent. I believe that if I use my connections to bring the remains of Tom's snake, then it should increase this resonance that you speak of. If possible, I would like either or both of you to accompany me to some suspect places. And that's the end of chapter 28. That was quite a big one. It's been a while since we had a bit of a long chapter. But yeah, that is chapter 28. The next chapter will be the last chapter because there is no more after that. It's been years since it's been updated. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this chapter. If you did, leave a like. Go leave a review. You don't have to have an account. There's a link. I said this at the beginning. Go click the link. Go leave a review. You don't need an account. It just means the author can't respond. Who knows? Maybe you'll finally get them to continue again. Who knows? And yeah, be sure to subscribe. I upload new videos every Friday. And I'll see you guys next Friday with a new video.